On September 22nd, 2020, around 1:30 in the morning, the silence of the small town of Laredo, Texas, was shattered by the sirens of police cars and ambulances. They were heading to a house on Canyon Oak Drive, where a tragedy was unfolding that would forever change the life of one family and shake the entire local community. The story of Maria Munoz and Joel Payot began in the early 2000s in Puerto Rico. Maria, a young and ambitious nursing student, met Joel, who was 11 years her senior and also studying in the medical field. Despite the age difference, there was instant chemistry between them. They were united by a shared passion for medicine and a desire to help people. Maria was known among friends for her sincerity, kindness, and dedication to family. After her mother's death, she took on the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings, demonstrating her nurturing nature. Joel, for his part, gave the impression of an ambitious and determined man who sought to achieve success in his career. Their relationship developed quickly, and by 2011, the couple married, uniting their lives and dreams for the future. For Maria, this was a step into a new life, full of hopes for a happy family and a successful career alongside her beloved husband. A few years after their marriage, Maria and Joel's lives underwent radical changes. Joel received an attractive job offer in Laredo, Texas, as a certified registered nurse anesthetist, CRNA. This opportunity promised a significant salary increase and career growth. The decision to move was not easy for the couple, especially for Maria. She had to leave her family, friends, and career in Puerto Rico. However, supporting her husband's dreams, Maria agreed to this step. Laredo, a city with a population of about 260,000 residents, became their new home. It offered a favorable environment for a young family, numerous parks, lakes, and good schools. However, like any city, it had its problems, including a higher-than-average rate of property crime. Adapting to the new life proved challenging for Maria. She temporarily put her nursing career on hold, focusing on setting up their new home and supporting Joel in his work. Despite the difficulties, Maria remained optimistic, hoping that this new chapter would bring happiness and prosperity to their family. Soon after moving to Texas, the Payot family welcomed their firstborn, a son named Alejandro. The birth of the child brought new light into the couple's life. Maria fully devoted herself to the role of mother, finding joy in the daily care of her son. Joel, meanwhile, was achieving success in his career. His work as a CRNA not only provided financial security for the family, but also allowed Maria to stay at home with the child. It seemed that life was perfect for the young family. In 2018, their second son, Valentino, was born. Maria was happy to be the mother of 2 boys. She spent a lot of time playing with the children, taking them for walks in the park, and reading to them before bedtime. The walls of their house were decorated with children's drawings, and toys were scattered throughout all the rooms, creating an atmosphere of a warm family nest. Maria planned to return to work when the children started school. She began preparing for the exams necessary to renew her nursing license in Texas, aspiring to combine motherhood with professional fulfillment. Around 2018, shortly after Valentino's birth, friends and colleagues began to notice changes in Joel's behavior and appearance. He quickly lost weight and then started to gain muscle mass, raising suspicions about possible steroid use. The changes were not limited to physical appearance. Joel became more self-confident, often boasting about his high earnings and expensive purchases. He bought a sports car for himself and a new car for Maria, constantly emphasizing his financial success. Joel's social media also underwent changes. Previously filled with family photos, his profiles now abounded with selfies showcasing his new physical form. Photos of Maria and the children gradually disappeared from his pages. During this period, Joel met Janet Arredondo, a surgical nurse at the hospital where he worked. Their communication quickly developed into something more, although initially it was not noticeable to others. Maria, busy caring for young children, initially did not notice these changes. However, she gradually began to feel that something was wrong in their relationship. Joel became more distant, often staying late at work and spending less time with the family. Maria's suspicions about her husband's infidelity were confirmed when she accidentally found plane tickets for Joel's trip to Europe. The tickets were in the names of Joel and Janet, which was a painful discovery for Maria about the reality of their marriage. According to friends' testimonies, Joel took Janet on a luxurious trip across Europe, visiting Spain, France, and Greece. This trip took place while Maria remained at home with young children, including newborn Valentino. The revelation of the affair became a turning point in Maria's life. She faced the reality that her husband was leading a double life, maintaining a relationship with another woman for an extended period. This discovery inflicted deep emotional trauma on Maria, shaking her faith in the strength of their marriage and shared future. After the revelation of Joel's infidelity, Maria found herself in a complex emotional situation. Despite the pain and disappointment, she decided to fight for her marriage, guided by love for her children and hope for relationship restoration. Joel, realizing that his double life had been exposed, tried to make amends. He organized a luxurious trip for Maria to Las Vegas, accompanying it with expensive gifts, including Louis Vuitton bags. This trip briefly created an illusion of reconciliation and the possibility of a new beginning for the couple. However, despite outward signs of repentance, Joel did not end his relationship with Janet. He continued to lead a double life, balancing between family and mistress. This situation led to the onset of deep depression in Maria. Maria began taking antidepressants, trying to cope with emotional pain. She also turned to religion, seeking solace in prayers and church attendance. During this period, Maria started keeping a diary where she candidly wrote about her feelings and experiences. The last months of Maria's life were filled with internal struggle and emotional suffering. Her diaries, later found by investigators, reveal the depth of her experiences and hopes for the future. In one entry, Maria wrote, "My fears are losing family, losing my husband, harming the children, making the wrong choice." These lines testify to her constant anxiety and desire to preserve the family, despite difficult circumstances. Despite depression, Maria did not lose hope for a better future. She wrote about the desire to be a good mother, present and involved in her children's lives. Her diaries were filled with prayers and appeals to God for help and guidance. During this period, Maria also began planning her professional future. She was preparing for exams to renew her nursing license in Texas, hoping to return to work when the children started school. These plans indicated her desire to move forward, despite difficulties in her personal life. On the night of September 22, 2020, Maria Munoz's life tragically ended. The events of this night became the central point of subsequent investigation and trial. A few days before this date, on Saturday, a conflict occurred between Maria and Joel. Maria, driving past Janet's house, noticed her husband's car there. She stopped and approached the door, demanding Joel make a final choice between her and Janet. According to testimonies, Joel chose Janet, but still left with Maria. During this confrontation, Joel, according to witnesses, hit the windshield of the car, breaking it. On Monday evening, Joel and Maria agreed to meet for a serious conversation. Maria sent a message to a friend asking her to pray for her before this important talk. This was the last message Maria sent to her friends. Around 1:30 in the morning on September 22nd, Joel Peyote called 911. The recording of this call became important evidence in the case. "Mary Neal, what's the emergency address?" "Come on. I'll call my wife. I'll call my parents. She's not breathing. I have to take him to the pills." "Okay, what's your address?" Joel informed the operator that his wife wasn't breathing and that he thought she might have taken some pills. He tried to perform CPR as instructed by the operator, but unsuccessfully. The first police officer arrived at the scene a few minutes after the call. His body camera recorded key moments of the initial investigation. When the officer entered the house, he saw Joel in surgical attire performing CPR on Maria. The children, Alejandro and Valentino, were still asleep in their rooms, unaware of the tragedy unfolding. The officer noticed several suspicious details. Joel was excessively sweaty, which seemed odd given the light clothing and cool temperature in the house. Moreover, when the officer asked about the medications Maria might have taken, Joel brought a bottle of clonazepam that was prescribed in his name, not Maria's. While providing assistance to Maria, the officer set aside the medication bottle but later noticed it had disappeared. Upon reviewing the body camera footage, it became obvious that Joel had discreetly taken the bottle and hidden it in his pocket, raising additional suspicions. After the arrival of additional police units and paramedics, Joel was sent downstairs to allow the rescuers to work. Unfortunately, despite all efforts, Maria was pronounced dead at 3:58 in the morning. Detectives began the investigation, with the first step being Joel's interrogation. His behavior during the interrogation raised additional suspicions. He was excessively sweaty, nervous, and gave confused answers. When left alone in the interrogation room, he screamed, cried, and hit the walls, which was captured on camera. Joel said that he and Maria had been intimate, after which he went to shower. Upon returning, he found her unconscious. However, detectives noticed that the bathroom was completely dry, with no signs of recent use. Parallel to Joel's interrogation, the police conducted a search of the house. They found an intravenous needle on the stairs, as well as medical equipment for IVs and other syringes in a medical bag. These findings seemed strange, considering that Maria did not require such medications. An important piece of evidence was Maria's diary, found during the search. In it, she detailed her emotions, fears, and hopes. The entries testified to her deep love for her children and desire to preserve the family, despite difficulties in her relationship with Joel. A key moment in the investigation came when the toxicology report arrived 4 months after Maria's death. The results were shocking and completely refuted the version of clonazepam overdose that Joel initially put forward. 7 different drugs were found in Maria's blood: morphine, Demerol, Versed, propofol, ketamine, lidocaine, and Narcan. Importantly, clonazepam, which Maria allegedly took, was not detected in her system. Particular attention was drawn to the high level of propofol, a powerful anesthetic typically used in surgery. According to experts, the concentration of propofol in Maria's blood was one of the highest ever recorded, sufficient for conducting several serious operations. Most of the detected drugs are administered intravenously, which was consistent with the small injection mark found on Maria's arm during the autopsy. This detail became key in forming the version of intentional murder. The results of the toxicology report forced investigators to revise their strategy. They again turned to Janet Arredondo, Joel's mistress, for additional questioning. This time, faced with new evidence, Janet agreed to an immunity deal in exchange for testifying against Joel. Janet revealed that Joel regularly brought medical drugs from the hospital to her home, including propofol, morphine, and other narcotic substances. She confessed that they sometimes used these drugs together for recreational purposes. Moreover, Janet reported that the day after her first interrogation, Joel asked her to delete the surveillance camera recordings from her house for September 21st and 22nd. Joel's colleagues also provided important information. One of them, Luis, testified that Joel complained about a difficult situation in his marriage and expressed reluctance to divorce due to potential financial losses associated with alimony. When Luis directly asked Joel if he had killed Maria, he responded evasively, "I can't talk about that." Analysis of Maria's diaries revealed that a few days before her death, she was seriously considering the possibility of divorce. In one of her last entries, she wrote about wanting to move forward and start a new life. Based on the accumulated evidence, in January 2021, Joel Payot was arrested on charges of murdering Maria and tampering with evidence. His bail was set at $200,000. Joel's arrest came as a shock to many, especially Maria's family. Her sister, Marisol, until this moment believed that Maria might have committed suicide due to marital problems. She couldn't believe that Joel could be involved in her sister's death. After the arrest, Joel was released on bail and awaited trial, wearing an electronic tracking bracelet. This period lasted almost 2 years, during which the prosecution prepared the case against him. On March 20th, 2023, the trial of Joel Payot began. The prosecution assembled a team of 4 experienced lawyers who represented Maria's interests and those of the state. The prosecution presented to the court a version of events according to which Joel methodically planned Maria's murder. They argued that the motive for the crime was Joel's unwillingness to pay alimony and divide property in case of divorce. According to the prosecution's estimates, potential payments could reach $1 million. Prosecutors emphasized that Joel, having access to powerful medical drugs due to his profession, used them to kill his wife. They suggested that he might have added sedative drugs to Maria's drink, and then, when she lost consciousness, administered a lethal dose of propofol and other medications. Joel's defense, on the other hand, presented an alternative version of events. They claimed that both Maria and Joel abused narcotic substances, and that Maria's death was the result of an accidental overdose. According to the defense's version, Joel tried to save his wife by administering Narcan, a drug used to reverse the effects of opioids. Key evidence at the trial included the toxicology report, which revealed a lethal combination of drugs in Maria's body, Janet Arredondo's testimony that Joel brought medical drugs home, entries from Maria's diary demonstrating her psychological state and plans for the future, video footage from the police officer's body camera that captured Joel's behavior immediately after Maria's death, and testimony from Joel's colleagues about his financial motives and reluctance to divorce. This evidence formed a solid basis for the prosecution, demonstrating both Joel's motive and opportunity to commit the crime. After 8 days of court hearings, on March 30th, 2023, the jury went into deliberation. It took them less than an hour to reach a verdict. Joel Payot was found guilty of the intentional murder of Maria Munoz and tampering with evidence. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment for murder and an additional 10 years for evidence tampering. According to the sentence, Joel will be eligible for parole only in 2053. The verdict in Joel Payot's case put a legal end to Maria Munoz's tragic story, but its consequences continued to be felt. The fate of the children, Alejandro and Valentino, became a subject of particular concern. Although exact information about their current whereabouts is not disclosed, it can be assumed that they are under the care of Maria's relatives, possibly her sister Marisol. This case caused significant resonance in the medical community of Laredo and beyond. It raised important questions about abuse of official position in the medical field and access to dangerous drugs. Joel's colleagues who were present at the trial expressed shock at how a person they trusted with patients' lives could commit such a crime. The story of Maria and Joel also drew attention to the problem of domestic violence and emotional abuse in families that outwardly seem prosperous. Maria's diaries revealed the depth of her suffering and isolation, despite the outward appearance of a successful family. For Maria's friends and loved ones, the verdict became an opportunity for closure, but it did not ease the pain of loss. Yasmin Martinez, Maria's close friend, said in an interview after the trial, "Maria was an extraordinary person. She loved her children above all else and always dreamed of a happy family. We hope that this tragedy will make people more attentive to their loved ones and not afraid to ask for help." The case also raised questions about Janet Arredondo's role. Although she received immunity from prosecution in exchange for testimony, her involvement in the events leading to Maria's death raised ethical questions. After the trial, Janet disappeared from public view, and her subsequent fate remains unknown. The medical community of Laredo initiated a review of protocols for storing and accounting for potent drugs in hospitals to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Dr. John Hunsinger, Joel's former supervisor, became an active advocate for strengthening control over access to dangerous medications. This story also became a warning for those facing problems in marriage. It highlighted the importance of timely seeking professional help and support from loved ones in difficult life situations. For many Laredo residents, this tragedy served as a reminder that deep problems can hide behind the facade of a successful life. It encouraged people to be more attentive to their loved ones and not afraid to intervene if they suspect someone is suffering from violence or abuse. The memory of Maria Munoz lives on not only in the hearts of her children and loved ones, but also as a reminder of the importance of timely help and support for those suffering in silence. Her tragic story became a catalyst for important discussions about domestic violence, drug abuse in the medical profession, and the importance of mental health in modern society. The case of Maria Munoz and Joel Payot has had a lasting impact on the Laredo community and beyond. It has sparked conversations about the hidden struggles that can exist behind seemingly perfect facades and the importance of being vigilant and supportive of those around us. In the medical community, this case has led to increased scrutiny of drug handling procedures and access to powerful medications. Many hospitals and medical facilities have reviewed and tightened their protocols for tracking and dispensing controlled substances. The case has also prompted discussions about the mental health of medical professionals and the pressures they face in their high-stress careers. For law enforcement and the legal system, this case highlighted the importance of thorough investigation and the role of forensic evidence in solving complex crimes. The meticulous work of the detectives, forensic experts, and prosecutors in piecing together the evidence was crucial in bringing justice for Maria. In the broader social context, Maria's story has become a rallying point for domestic violence awareness campaigns. Local organizations in Laredo and surrounding areas have used this case to educate the public about the signs of emotional abuse and the resources available for those in abusive relationships. The fact that such a tragedy could occur in what appeared to be a successful, professional family has challenged many people's preconceptions about domestic violence. The fate of Maria and Joel's children, Alejandro and Valentino, remains a poignant reminder of the far-reaching consequences of domestic violence. While their current situation is not publicly known, child welfare experts have emphasized the importance of providing long-term support and counseling for children who have experienced such trauma. In the years following the trial, several books and documentaries have explored Maria's story, seeking to understand the complex dynamics that led to her tragic death. These works have not only examined the specifics of the case, but have also delved into broader issues of marital discord, the pressures of immigrant families trying to achieve the American dream, and the sometimes deadly consequences of infidelity and financial stress. The Laredo community has taken steps to honor Maria's memory. A local park has been renamed in her honor, serving as a place of reflection and a reminder of the importance of familial love and community support. Annual events are held on the anniversary of her death, bringing together domestic violence survivors, advocates, and community members to raise awareness and promote healing. In the medical field, the case has led to discussions about ethics and professional responsibility. Medical schools and continuing education programs have incorporated case studies based on this tragedy to teach future healthcare professionals about the dangers of drug abuse and the importance of maintaining ethical standards. For many who knew Maria, her legacy is one of love, resilience, and unfulfilled potential. Friends and family often speak of her warmth, her dedication to her children, and her dreams of returning to nursing. Her diary entries, which played such a crucial role in the investigation, have become a powerful testament to her inner strength and her struggle to maintain hope in the face of adversity. The case has also had ripple effects in the legal community. Prosecutors and defense attorneys alike have studied the strategies used in this trial, particularly how digital evidence, toxicology reports, and personal writings can be crucial in building or defending a case. The role of plea bargains and immunity deals, as seen with Janet Arredondo's testimony, has been a subject of much debate in legal circles. For the Puerto Rican community in Laredo and beyond, Maria's story has been particularly impactful. It has sparked discussions about the challenges faced by immigrants, the importance of maintaining cultural ties, and the need for community support systems, especially for those far from their extended families. In the years since the trial, Joel Payot's case has gone through the appeal process, with his defense team challenging various aspects of the conviction. However, as of the last update, the original verdict has been upheld, and Joel remains in prison, serving his life sentence. The aftermath of this case continues to unfold. Janet Arredondo, whose testimony was crucial in convicting Joel, has reportedly struggled with the consequences of her actions and her role in the events leading to Maria's death. While she avoided legal consequences due to her immunity deal, she has faced social ostracism and professional difficulties. Maria's sister, Marisol, has become an advocate for domestic violence awareness and prevention. She often speaks at events, sharing Maria's story and urging people to be more attuned to the warning signs of abusive relationships. Her efforts have helped many women in similar situations find the courage to seek help. The hospital where Joel worked has implemented stringent new protocols for monitoring the use and distribution of controlled substances. These measures have become a model for other healthcare facilities across the state, potentially preventing similar incidents in the future. As time passes, Maria Munoz's story continues to resonate with many. It serves as a somber reminder of the potential for tragedy hidden behind closed doors and the importance of community vigilance, support, and action. Her life, though cut tragically short, has become a catalyst for positive change, prompting important conversations and actions to prevent similar tragedies in the future. In Laredo and beyond, Maria is remembered not just for the circumstances of her death, but for the life she lived, a devoted mother, a caring nurse, and a woman who dreamed of a better future. Her story continues to inspire efforts to create safer homes, more supportive communities, and a society more attuned to the silent struggles of those around us.
In the small town of Gambia, Ohio, the prestigious Kenyon College is located. In the fall of 2000, the campus was filled with typical student life. Lectures, sporting events, and parties created an atmosphere of carefree optimism. However, no one could have predicted that this idyll would soon be disrupted by an event that would shake not only the college, but the entire community. The evening of November 2nd, 2000, was no different from others. Students were returning from classes, preparing for upcoming exams, or gathering at local establishments. Among them was 20-year-old Emily Murray, who worked at the popular student restaurant Pirates Cove. No one could have foreseen that this night would become a turning point in the lives of many people and forever change the face of Kenyon College. Emily Murray was born on February 19, 1980 in Sleepy Hollow, New York, but spent most of her life in Shaker Heights, Ohio. She grew up in a loving family, where an atmosphere of support and mutual understanding prevailed. Her father, Tom Murray, held the position of director of the Center for Biomedical Ethics at Case Western Reserve University, which allowed the family to lead a comfortable life. From early childhood, Emily showed remarkable abilities and a deep interest in the world around her. She was a gifted student who not only excelled in her studies but was also actively involved in charity work. Even at the age of 7, the little girl created business cards offering her services for household chores and donated the money she earned to charity. Religion played an important role in Emily's life. She was a deeply devout Christian and actively participated in the life of the Episcopal Church. Her faith was manifested not only in words, but in actions. Emily often took part in charity trips and volunteer projects. After entering Kenyon College, Emily chose philosophy as her major subject. Her ultimate goal was to become an Episcopal priest. In the fall of 2000, at the beginning of her 3rd year of study, she seemed confident in her future and full of enthusiasm about her chosen path. However, like many young people, Emily had her internal struggles. She periodically suffered from depression, which was associated with the intense schedule of study and work. Despite this, Emily always found the strength to keep moving forward, relying on the support of family and friends. November 2nd, 2000 began for Emily Murray as an ordinary day. She attended classes at Kenyon College, chatted with friends, and prepared for her last shift at the Pirates Cove restaurant. This establishment, located near the campus, was a popular spot among students, known for its casual atmosphere and late hours of operation. Emily had decided to quit her job to focus on her studies, and this shift was to be her last. Colleagues, knowing this, decided to throw a small farewell celebration for her. Throughout the evening, Emily's friends and acquaintances came to the restaurant to wish her well. According to staff accounts, Emily's shift proceeded as usual. She served customers, chatted with colleagues, and performed her duties. No one noticed anything unusual in her behavior or mood. At 2 o'clock in the morning on November 3rd, the Pirates Cove closed and visitors began to disperse. Emily and several other employees stayed behind to clean up and close the establishment. Olivia Healy, Emily's colleague and friend, later said that she last saw her around 3 o'clock when they split up to perform different cleaning tasks. Greg McKnight, the restaurant's cook, confirmed that Emily was in the establishment until about 3 o'clock. According to him, all employees finished their duties around this time and went home. These were the last known moments of Emily's presence at the Pirates Cove. What happened after Emily left the restaurant remains unknown. She was supposed to return to her dormitory on campus, but never arrived there. Her green Subaru Outback also disappeared, which initially didn't raise particular suspicions, as it was assumed she might have driven somewhere. The first hours after Emily's disappearance went unnoticed. Her roommates, waking up in the morning and not finding Emily, weren't initially worried, assuming she might have stayed with friends or left early in the morning. Concern about Emily's absence began to grow later that day, November 3rd. Her roommates, Megan and Kate, became worried when Emily didn't show up for a planned party, for which she had specially bought a blender a few days ago. This was so uncharacteristic of her that the girls decided to contact campus police. Around midnight, Emily's parents, Tom and Cynthia Murray, received a disturbing call from their older daughter, who reported Emily's disappearance. Without wasting time, they set off from New York to Ohio, arriving at Kenyon College a few hours later. The initial reaction of law enforcement was quite restrained. Representatives of the Knox County Sheriff's Office suggested that Emily might have spontaneously gone on a vacation, possibly to Cancun, and would soon return. They argued that such cases often happen among young people. However, the Murray family and Emily's friends insisted that such behavior was absolutely not in character for her. They emphasized that Emily always kept in touch with her family, calling or sending emails every day. Moreover, important personal belongings remained in her room, including her wallet with documents and bank cards. When it became clear that Emily's disappearance was not a usual case, the Kenyon College community and the town of Gambier quickly mobilized. Dozens of volunteers, including students, faculty, and local residents, joined the search. Search groups combed the campus area and surrounding districts, hoping to find any clues. Flyers with Emily's photo and information about her disappearance were posted all over the town and distributed in neighboring settlements. Local media actively covered the situation, which helped to draw public attention to the case. Social networks and internet forums became platforms for information exchange and coordination of volunteer efforts. Community support proved invaluable not only in the practical aspect of the search, but also in moral support for the Murray family. Emily's friends and classmates organized prayer gatherings and support actions, demonstrating unity and compassion. As the case developed, the official investigation began to gain momentum. Detectives focused their attention on the Pirates Cove, Emily's last known location. They conducted thorough interviews with all employees and visitors who were present at the restaurant on the night of the disappearance. Investigators paid particular attention to the restaurant staff. Among them were David Cale, a driver and cashier, and David Yoakum, who had previously worked at the establishment. Cale was checked due to rumors about his possible feelings for Emily, but his alibi was confirmed. He left the restaurant early to attend a concert. Yoakum attracted attention due to a history of inappropriate behavior with female colleagues, but it turned out he wasn't at the restaurant on the night of Emily's disappearance. Greg McKnight, the restaurant's cook, was also questioned. He claimed to have seen Emily finish her shift around 3 a.m, but couldn't provide additional information about her plans or behavior. Investigators also analyzed Emily's phone calls and messages from the last few days before her disappearance, looking for any unusual contacts or changes in her routine. They checked surveillance camera records in the campus area and adjacent streets, hoping to find images of Emily or her car. As the investigation dragged on, various theories and speculations about Emily's fate began to emerge. Rumors and assumptions spread throughout the campus and local community. Some believed that Emily might have voluntarily left home due to stress or personal problems. This theory was supported by information about her previous episodes of depression. Others suggested the possibility of an accident, especially considering the disappearance of her car. More disturbing theories included the possibility of kidnapping or a violent crime. These assumptions heightened fear among students, especially women, and led to increased security measures on campus. The college administration responded to the situation by increasing patrols of the territory and recommending students move in groups, especially at night. An escort system was also introduced for students who needed safe accompaniment within the campus. These events significantly affected the atmosphere at Kenyon College. The sense of safety that previously prevailed in this small academic town was disrupted, and students became more cautious and vigilant. With each day that Emily remained missing, hope for her safe return gradually faded. For the Murray family, this was a period of unspeakable stress and emotional suffering. Tom and Cynthia Murray, Emily's parents, remained in Ohio, coordinating the search and maintaining constant contact with law enforcement. The family's emotional state was extremely tense. They couldn't eat normally, sleep, or continue their daily lives. Every phone call, every knock on the door caused them a mixture of hope and fear. Was this finally news about Emily? Emily's friends and classmates were also going through difficult times. Many felt a sense of guilt, thinking that maybe they could have done something to prevent her disappearance. The atmosphere on campus was gloomy, with a constant reminder of Emily's absence in the form of flyers with her photo posted everywhere. The investigation continued, but there were no significant breakthroughs. Investigators expanded the search area, checking adjacent counties and even turning to the FBI and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation for help. However, despite all efforts, no substantial leads could be found. the breakthrough in the case came unexpectedly and in the most unexpected place. On December 9th, 2000, more than a month after Emily's disappearance, 2 Vinton County Sheriff's deputies arrived at a remote trailer park near the small town of Ray. Their task was to serve court documents in connection with a recent theft and trespassing case. Upon arrival, the officers initially thought their visit would be futile. The trailer looked abandoned and seemed to have been deserted for some time. However, as they were about to leave, their attention was drawn to a car hidden behind the trailer. It was a green Subaru Outback, the same car that belonged to the missing Emily Murray. A check of the license plates confirmed their suspicions. The officers immediately reported their find to the detectives handling Emily's case. It turned out that the trailer belonged to Gregory McKnight, the same cook from the Pirates Cove who was one of the last to see Emily alive. This accidental discovery became a turning point in the investigation, opening a new and disturbing direction in the search for the missing student. After the discovery of Emily's car, investigators quickly obtained a warrant to search Gregory McKnight's trailer. When an officer entered through the window, he was immediately struck by a strong smell of decomposition. Further inspection of the premises revealed traces of blood in various places, with a large stain in the living room being particularly noticeable. The most horrifying discovery awaited investigators in the bedroom. There, wrapped in a carpet, they found Emily Murray's body. A subsequent autopsy determined that the cause of death was a single contact gunshot wound to the right side of the head. This tragic discovery put an end to 36 days of painful uncertainty for the Murray family and the Kenyon College community. News of Emily's death spread quickly, causing shock and grief among all who knew her. Gregory McKnight was immediately arrested and brought in for questioning. He was reluctant, giving short and evasive answers. When investigators presented him with the known facts, McKnight ended the conversation and asked for a lawyer. The investigation into Gregory McKnight's past revealed a disturbing picture. Born on November 14, 1976, McKnight grew up in a troubled family. In 1992, at the age of just 15, he was convicted of murdering a man from Columbus during a robbery. McKnight served his sentence in a juvenile correctional facility and was released after 5 or 6 years. Sources differ on the exact term. After his release, he married Kathy, a former employee of the correctional facility where he had served his sentence. In October 2000, McKnight started working as a cook at the Pirates Cove. His colleagues described him as quiet and reserved, but capable of sudden outbursts of anger. Some employees remembered that McKnight sometimes showed inappropriate attention to female colleagues and customers. This information led investigators to consider the possibility that they were dealing not just with a murderer, but with a potential serial offender. This assumption soon received horrifying confirmation. During a thorough search of the area around McKnight's trailer, investigators made another shocking discovery. Human bones were found in a concrete water tank, partially buried in the ground. Further searches revealed additional remains in the basement and in garbage bags scattered around the property. The identification of these remains led to the uncovering of another disappearance, that of 20-year-old Gregory Julius from Chillicothe, who had gone missing 6 months earlier. Dana Bostic, Julius's girlfriend, reported that she had last seen him on May 12th when he went to a party at Ohio State University with a friend, Gregory McKnight. This connection between the two crimes significantly strengthened the case against McKnight. Investigators found that McKnight had sold the red Mazda he was using at the time of Julius's disappearance almost immediately after the incident. Analysis of the car revealed traces of Julius's blood under the carpet on the back seat. With 2 victims found on his property, Gregory McKnight became the prime suspect in both murders. The prosecution began thorough preparation for the trial, gathering all possible evidence. Forensic experts conducted a detailed analysis of the crime scene, collecting DNA samples, ballistic evidence, and other physical traces. Fingerprints found in the trailer were matched with McKnight's fingerprints. Prosecutors put forward a theory about McKnight's motives. They suggested that he might have secretly harbored feelings for Emily, and upon learning of her resignation from the Pirates Cove, decided to act. Regarding Julius, the motive remained less clear, but investigators suggested it could have been the result of an argument or a chance encounter. McKnight's defense faced a difficult task. Given the weight of the evidence, they focused on attempts to discredit the investigation methods and cast doubt on the reliability of some evidence. The public closely followed the development of the case. Media coverage was intense, often focusing on the contrast between the innocence of the victims and the brutality of the crimes. This sparked wide debates about safety on college campuses and the effectiveness of the criminal rehabilitation system. The trial of Gregory McKnight began in 2002 and attracted significant public attention. The prosecution presented compelling evidence, including physical evidence from the crime scene, forensic results, and testimony from numerous witnesses. Key points of the prosecution were DNA evidence linking McKnight to the bodies of both victims, ballistic evidence pointing to a weapon belonging to McKnight, testimony from Pirates Cove employees about McKnight's behavior on the night of Emily's disappearance, evidence related to the sale of the car after Gregory Julius's disappearance. McKnight's defense tried to cast doubt on the reliability of some evidence and the methods of conducting the investigation. They also attempted to focus attention on the defendant's mental state, hinting at possible mental disorders. One of the most emotional moments of the trial was the testimony of the Murray family. Tom and Cynthia Murray spoke about their daughter, her dreams and plans for the future, which were so cruelly interrupted. After lengthy deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Gregory McKnight was found guilty of first-degree murder of Emily Murray, first-degree murder of Gregory Julius, as well as kidnapping and robbery. The judge faced a difficult decision regarding the sentence. The prosecution insisted on the death penalty, arguing the severity of the crimes and the presence of multiple victims. The defense asked for a mitigation of punishment, citing McKnight's difficult childhood and possible mental problems. Unexpectedly for many, the Murray family spoke out against the death penalty for McKnight. Tom and Cynthia Murray, guided by their religious beliefs and knowing Emily's views on this issue, asked the court to spare the life of their daughter's murderer. They stated, Emily would consider it a tragedy and an abomination if another human life were taken in her name. Despite the Murray family's plea, the judge still sentenced McKnight to death for the murder of Emily. For the murder of Gregory Julius, he received life imprisonment. Additional terms were imposed for kidnapping and robbery. This sentence elicited mixed reactions in society, provoking debates about the effectiveness and ethics of the death penalty. The court's decision to impose the death penalty on Gregory McKnight, despite the Murray family's plea for mercy, sparked intense debates in society. This situation highlighted a complex ethical question. Can the state impose a death sentence when even the victim's family opposes it? The Murray family's position was based on their deep religious convictions and commitment to the principles of non-violence. They believed that Emily, with her strong Christian faith and aspiration for mercy, would not have approved of such punishment. This stance evoked both admiration and criticism in society. Supporters of the death penalty argued their decision by the necessity of fair retribution for cruel crimes and protecting society from dangerous criminals. They pointed to the severity of McKnight's crimes and his previous conviction for murder. Opponents of the death penalty, in turn, used this case as an example that even in the most severe cases, there are alternatives to execution. They emphasized the possibility of rehabilitation and the importance of preserving human life, regardless of circumstances. The tragic death of Emily Murray had a profound and long-lasting impact on Kenyon College and society as a whole. The college implemented a series of changes in the campus security system, including enhanced patrolling, improved lighting, and an expanded emergency communication system. A tree was planted on campus in honor of Emily, which became a place for reflection and honoring her memory. Every year on November 2nd, the day of her disappearance, and February 19th, her birthday, memorial events are held. The Murray family, despite the unspeakable pain of loss, found the strength to continue living and maintain Emily's memory. They established the Emily Murray Scholarship Fund for students who share her values and aspiration for community service. Emily's story became a catalyst for discussing student safety issues, especially for women, on campuses across the country. Her tragedy led to a reassessment of safety policies and procedures in many educational institutions. After the death sentence was handed down to Gregory McKnight, a lengthy appeals process began. His lawyers challenged the verdict on various grounds, from procedural violations to the constitutionality of the death penalty. One of the key arguments of the defense was that Vinton County, the poorest in Ohio, did not have sufficient resources to conduct a fair trial in a case with a possible death sentence. This issue even led to a temporary overturning of the death sentence by a lower court judge, but the decision was later reversed by a higher court. McKnight's appeals went through various instances, including the Ohio Supreme Court. At each stage, the sentence was confirmed, but the process dragged on for years, which is typical for death penalty cases in the United States. In 2020, new defense arguments emerged. McKnight's lawyers claimed that he did not receive a fair trial due to racial bias. They alleged possible use of racist language by jurors during verdict discussions, which, if proven, could lead to a retrial. The Emily Murray case became a turning point in discussions about student safety, especially in small colleges and university towns. The tragedy forced many educational institutions to review their safety policies and procedures. Kenyon College significantly strengthened its security measures. Additional surveillance cameras were installed, campus lighting was improved, and security staff was expanded. An emergency notification system was also implemented, and regular safety training sessions were conducted for students and staff. Other colleges and universities across the country also took note of the lessons from this tragedy. Many institutions introduced or expanded programs for escorting students at night, increased access control to dormitories and academic buildings. The case also raised questions about employers' responsibility for background checks on their employees, especially those working in places popular among students. Some institutions began to require more thorough background checks during the hiring process. The night of June 13, 2021 in Santiago, the capital of Chile, was unusually quiet. The city streets, typically lively even at late hours, seemed empty. Only occasional cars disturbed the peace, their headlights momentarily illuminating dark alleys before disappearing around corners. There was tension in the air. The recent murder of a young girl had shaken the city, and the police were actively searching for the perpetrator. Among those awake that night was 25-year-old Valeria Vivanco, an assistant inspector at the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. She was preparing for her next shift, unaware that this night would become horrific for her. Valeria Vivanco was born on May 29, 1996, in Chile. She was the third child in the family of Miguel and Jacqueline Vivanco, where older children Daniela and Michelangelo were already growing up. The family lived modestly but decently. Her father worked for a transport company, providing the main income, while her mother took care of the household and raised the children. From early childhood, Valeria stood out among her peers. She grew up as a brave girl, always ready to help others. These character traits, which would later become defining in her professional life, manifested in everyday situations, whether it was protecting the weak at school or helping neighbors. In 2014, the Vivanco family went through a difficult period. Valeria's parents divorced. Despite the breakdown of the marriage, both parents maintained warm relationships with their children. They developed especially close relationships with their youngest daughter. Valeria became a kind of bridge between the separated parts of the family, maintaining connections between all its members. It was during this period that Valeria's desire to dedicate her life to serving the law and helping people finally took shape. Her determination and natural inclination towards justice became the foundation for choosing her future profession. After graduating from high school, Valeria Vivanco took a decisive step towards realizing her dream. She entered the Chilean Investigative Academy. This decision was a natural continuation of her pursuit of justice and desire to protect people. Studying at the academy proved to be a challenging test. Valeria faced strict discipline, intense physical training, and complex theoretical courses. However, her determination and natural abilities helped her not only to withstand this pressure but also to stand out among her classmates. Teachers quickly noticed the potential of the young student. Her analytical skills, attention to detail, and ability to work in a team made her one of the most promising cadets. Valeria showed a particular interest in criminology and forensic science, often staying after classes for additional research. In 2016, Valeria successfully graduated from the academy with honors. Her achievements did not go unnoticed, and soon she received an offer to join the prestigious Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. In 2017, with excellent theoretical training behind her, Valeria Vivenko began her professional career at the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. The first months of work became a real test for her, as reality turned out to be much more complex than training cases. Despite initial difficulties, Valeria quickly adapted to the new environment. Her colleagues noted her tireless work ethic and willingness to take on the most challenging cases. She never refused night shifts or working on weekends, understanding that crime doesn't have a schedule. The first successes didn't take long to come. Valeria participated in solving several complex cases, demonstrating an extraordinary approach to analyzing evidence and working with witnesses. Her ability to establish trusting relationships with victims and their families became an important asset for the Bureau. The department leadership quickly noticed the potential of the young detective. Valeria began to be involved in more responsible tasks, entrusting her with key aspects of investigations. Her dedication to work and professionalism earned respect not only from colleagues but also from representatives of other law enforcement agencies. With each passing year, Valeria Vivenko's professional reputation grew stronger. Her dedication to work and impressive results did not go unnoticed. In 2020, she received her first significant award for successfully preventing a jewelry store robbery on July 21st. This operation became exemplary. Valeria not only prevented the crime but also managed to neutralize two dangerous criminals without casualties among the civilian population. Soon after, Valeria was sent on a diplomatic mission to Madrid. There, she demonstrated her skills in international cooperation, supporting the logistics of an important vote that became the basis for constitutional operations in Chile. This mission significantly expanded her professional experience and strengthened her position in law enforcement. By 2021, Valeria had already reached the rank of assistant inspector. This appointment was a recognition of her professional growth and abilities. At 25, she became one of the youngest employees to reach such a level in the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. The night of June 13, 2021 began for Valeria Vivenko as a regular shift. At 4 o'clock in the morning, a special operation was conducted in the city of Santo Tomás de la Pintana to check all incoming and outgoing transport. The reason for these measures was the recent murder of a 20-year-old girl nearby. Valeria was part of a group that also included Deputy Commissioner Felipe Gallardo Araya, Assistant Inspector Maria Ura, and Detective Leonel Alejandro Contreras Canales. Their task was to identify and detain a suspect who, according to information, could be traveling in a Kia vehicle. When the suspicious car came into view, Felipe Araya skillfully blocked its path with a patrol car. Valeria and Leonel got out of the car with their weapons ready to use. Suddenly, a shot rang out and Valeria fell to the ground, having received a gunshot wound. Everything happened in front of many witnesses. Colleagues immediately rushed to help Valeria, providing first aid. She was urgently taken to Padre Hurtado Hospital, where doctors fought for her life. Despite all the efforts of the medical staff, Valeria died 2 hours later. This tragedy became a shock not only for Valeria's family and colleagues but for the entire Chilean society. The death of a young, promising police officer in the line of duty caused a wave of indignation and demands for justice. The news of Valeria Vivenko's death quickly spread throughout Chile, causing shock and outrage in society. The media immediately picked up this story, interrupting regular broadcasts for emergency reports. The street where the tragedy occurred quickly filled with journalists, police officers, and concerned citizens. The National Chief of Police for Combating Theft and Crime Hotspots, Jorge Sanchez, made an official statement on television. He reported that Vivenko was shot by criminals trying to escape from the crime scene. Sanchez also announced the successful detention of two suspects, 19-year-old Miguel Calabrano and his 17-year-old accomplice, whose name was not disclosed due to being a minor. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera also made a statement, expressing deep sorrow over the death of the young police officer. He called Valeria a brave girl who was doing her duty and promised that the authorities would do everything possible to establish justice. The public reacted with mass demonstrations and demands to enhance the safety of police officers. Social networks were flooded with messages of condolence and calls for severe punishment of the guilty. The farewell ceremony for Valeria Vivanco took place in the department where she worked. The event gathered hundreds of people, relatives, colleagues, friends, and ordinary citizens who came to pay their respects to the deceased. The farewell ceremony was held with all the honors due to a police officer who died in the line of duty. Valeria's colleagues, including Leonel Canales, carried her coffin from the office to the hearse and then to the cemetery. The procession moved through the city streets, where people applauded, paying their last respects to the heroine. High-ranking officials were present at the ceremony: Interior Minister Rodrigo Delgado, his deputy Juan Francisco Gali, head of the Homicide Investigation Department Hector Espinoza, and the country's president. A 3-day mourning period was declared in the department where Vivanco worked and in the academy where she studied. Hector Espinoza presented Valeria's parents with the Chilean flag, which they later hung at home next to a photograph of their deceased daughter. Speeches by colleagues and leadership emphasized Valeria's professionalism and dedication to her work. This farewell became not only a personal tragedy for the Vivanco family but also a symbol of national loss, which further emphasized the importance of investigating the circumstances of her death. Immediately after the tragedy, the official version of events was clear: Valeria Vivanco was shot by criminals during an escape attempt. The authorities quickly announced the detention of two suspects: 19-year-old Miguel Alejandro Calabrano and his 17-year-old accomplice, whose name was not disclosed due to being a minor. In June 2021, the first court hearing in the case took place. During it, Valeria's colleagues reported that on the night of the tragedy, they were conducting a covert operation, which is why Vivanco was not wearing a bulletproof vest and was traveling in a car without police logos. According to the prosecution's version, the suspects, trying to escape, intentionally opened fire on Vivanco. The court ordered both suspects to be taken into custody for 6 months, the estimated time for conducting the investigation. For the police at that moment, everything seemed obvious: the suspects were detained, the case could be considered almost closed. However, this version of events soon began to raise doubts. Relatives of the detainees stated that their children only confessed to accidentally hitting Vivanco with a car but did not shoot her. The mother of one of the suspects even filed a statement with the prosecutor's office, asserting her son's innocence and demanding the establishment of the truth. Despite the official version of events, Valeria Vivanco's family began to feel that something was wrong. Their suspicions intensified when they learned about some inconsistencies in the investigation. Valeria's sister, Daniela, in one of the interviews, stated that she had audio recordings from her sister's phone, which recorded that fatal operation. According to her, the recordings clearly heard Valeria's conversation only with Leonel Canales, which did not correspond to the official version of events. The Vivanco family, no longer trusting the official investigation, decided to conduct their own investigation. Valeria's older brother, Michelangelo, and sister Daniela began carefully studying the case materials, looking for new evidence. They even visited the city of Santo Tomas, where the tragedy occurred, trying to find surveillance cameras that could have recorded the real events of that night. The family's lawyer, Alfredo Morgado, drew attention to contradictions in witness testimonies and the strange behavior of some participants in the reconstruction of events. He emphasized that all detectives claimed they did not use weapons that night, although department head Sergio Munoz said the opposite. These discrepancies and inconsistencies only strengthened the determination of the Vivenco family to get to the truth, despite the official position of the authorities. In August 2021, the case took an unexpected turn. 3 investigators who participated in the investigation were suddenly fired due to possible involvement in the death of their colleague. On August 2nd, Valeria's parents were invited to the district prosecutor's office, where Inspector Juan Carlos Carrasco, on behalf of the police, offered them deep apologies. It turned out that their daughter died from a bullet from the gun of one of her colleagues. This news caused shock and outrage not only in the Vivenco family but in the entire society. Especially shocked was Juan Guillermo Vivenco, Miguel's son from his second marriage, who studied at the same academy as Valeria, inspired by her achievements. Suddenly it turned out that the department where he dreamed of working was involved in his sister's death. On August 4th, representatives of the Southern Prosecutor's Office released the results of an examination conducted by the Homicide Investigation Unit itself. It turned out that the bullet that killed Valeria Vivenco had a 9mm caliber, which is used in service weapons. This meant that the 3 detectives who accompanied Valeria that night could be involved in her death. During the investigation conducted by the prosecutor's office, serious violations and attempts to conceal evidence were revealed. It turned out that approximately 2 to 3 hours after Valeria's death, the police confirmed the detention of suspects. However, according to the prosecutor's office, both criminals surrendered themselves the next day, and only then was their detention officially registered. On July 29, 2021, the prosecutor received a report from the forensic laboratory, which had been kept in the investigation bureau for more than a month. It indicated the gun and bullet that killed Valeria Vivenco. The weapon belonged to her colleagues on the operation. It turned out that on June 17th, bureau experts conducted a ballistic check of the 3 detectives who were with Valeria at the moment of the tragedy and the 2 detained teenagers. Chief expert Jose Garrotti indicated in the report that traces of gunpowder were found on Leonel Canales' hands. This information reached the leadership of the unit but somehow was not used in the investigation. In addition, the forensic service report contained incorrect data regarding the trajectory of the fatal bullet. According to the document, the bullet entered the girl's abdomen from the front, but the ballistic study conducted by the Investigation Bureau showed that the fatal shot was made to the back. Experts also found a bullet with particles of Vivenco's blood at the scene of the tragedy. These facts caused outrage from the prosecutor's office and raised questions about possible corruption and attempts to conceal the truth in police ranks. Leonel Alejandro Contreras Canales, a 21-year-old police officer who worked with Valeria Vivenco, unexpectedly found himself at the center of the investigation. Before the tragedy, he was considered a promising young employee who had joined the unit only a few months ago. Suspicions about Canales intensified after the examination revealed traces of gunpowder on his hands. Moreover, his position at the moment of the shot, according to eyewitness testimonies, coincided with the trajectory of the bullet that hit Valeria. In November 2021, Leonel Canales was arrested on a prosecutor's warrant and taken to a pretrial detention center. At the first control hearing, the prosecutor's office officially charged him with manslaughter and demanded pretrial detention. Canales denied his guilt. He claimed that the traces of gunpowder on his hands appeared when he tried to stop the bleeding, providing first aid to Valeria. He also insisted that after the operation, he returned his service pistol with the same number of cartridges as before it. The trial of Leonel Canales began in March 2023. The prosecutor's office was confident in his guilt and intended to seek imprisonment for at least 15 years. The Vivenco family supported this position. The prosecution presented various reports and examinations which, in their opinion, confirmed that it was Canales who fired the fatal shot. They emphasized the lack of rational motives for using a weapon in that situation. Canales' defense, led by lawyer Eva Guerrero,
based their strategy on the claim that their client did not see who shot Valeria and even thought he was wounded himself. They insisted that Canales could not have fired the shot due to his position and the trajectory of the bullet that hit Valeria. Additionally, the defense put forward a version about the possible involvement of Felipe Araya, the driver of the patrol car, in the shooting. They claimed that Araya could have accidentally fired his pistol without leaving the driver's seat. The court carefully studied the arguments of both sides, as well as additional evidence presented by the Vivanco family as a result of their private investigation. In May 2023, violating the ban on communication with the press, Leonel Canales invited journalists to the pretrial detention center. This interview came as a surprise to all parties in the process. During the conversation, Canales publicly declared his innocence. He claimed that Valeria was killed by Felipe Araya with a shot to the back, which allowed the real criminals to escape. According to Canales, the subsequent investigation was conducted with numerous errors, which led to his unjust accusation. This interview caused mixed reactions. The prosecutor's office regarded it as an attempt to create additional hype around the case. The Vivanco family was outraged that Canales was allowed to speak publicly. The court reprimanded Canales for violating the ban on communication with journalists. Canales' statement about Felipe Araya's possible involvement in Valeria's death forced the investigation to once again check all versions of events. Canales' lawyers presented additional evidence in favor of this theory. They claimed that Araya, known among colleagues by the nickname Crazy Shooter due to his tendency to use weapons unreasonably, could have accidentally fired while behind the wheel of the patrol car. In their opinion, the identical nature of Canales and Araya's pistols could have led to confusion during the investigation. The defense also drew attention to the fact that Araya thoroughly washed his hands before the analysis for traces of gunpowder, and his testimony about the events of that night was contradictory and changed over time. However, the prosecutor's office considered this version weak. They insisted that all pistols of the operation participants were thoroughly checked, and the evidence pointed to Canales as the shooter. The Vivanco family, conducting their own investigation, found some evidence that could confirm the version about Araya's involvement. They provided the court with reports from the Carabineros, which, in their opinion, confirmed this theory. These new versions and evidence forced the court to order additional examinations and witness interrogations, which significantly delayed the process and complicated the establishment of the truth. The judicial process in the Valeria Vivanco case continued until November 2023. During this time, the court carefully examined all presented evidence, heard witnesses, and experts. On November 17, the court announced its decision. Leonel Canales was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. This decision was a compromise between the positions of the prosecution and the defense. The court took into account that Canales did not intend to kill his colleague, but his actions led to the tragic death of Valeria Vivanco. On November 29, 2023, the sentence was announced. Leonel Canales received 12 years in prison. The prosecution insisted on 15 years, while the defense asked for 10 years. The judge explained that in determining the sentence, 2 years that Canales spent in custody during the investigation were taken into account. In addition, Canales was prohibited from holding any public positions after release. The Valeria Vivanco case had a significant impact on the law enforcement system in Chile. It revealed serious problems with corruption and concealment of information in the police. As a result of the investigation, 16 employees of the Investigation Bureau were fired, including high-ranking officers. Among them was the director of the Homicide Investigation Department, Jorge Marquez, who was accused of administrative violations. This case led to a review of internal investigation procedures in the police. New protocols were implemented to ensure greater transparency and accountability during investigations of incidents involving police officers. In addition, Control over the use of service weapons was strengthened, and mandatory wearing of body cameras was introduced for employees participating in special operations. This tragedy also forced a review of the training system for young police officers, placing greater emphasis on ethical aspects of work and the importance of following the law even in difficult situations. The tragic death of Valeria Vivanco did not remain just a sad page in the history of the Chilean police. Her short but bright life became a symbol of dedication to duty and professionalism for many young officers. A square in the city was named in honor of Valeria. Every year on the day of her death, a commemoration ceremony is held there, during which people bring flowers and light candles. This tradition has become not only a tribute to Valeria's memory but also a reminder of the importance and danger of law enforcement work. A memorial plaque with her portrait was installed at the police academy where Valeria studied. The story of her life and service became part of the training course for future officers, as an example of professional ethics and selflessness. The Vivanco family, despite the pain of loss, actively participated in preserving Valeria's memory. They established a charitable foundation in her name, which provides support to families of police officers who died in the line of duty. Despite the completion of the trial and the sentencing, Valeria Vivanco's family did not feel that justice had been fully restored. They remained dissatisfied with the verdict, considering it too lenient for the severity of the crime. Valeria's parents publicly expressed their disappointment that Leonel Canales, by their calculations, could be released in just 9 to 10 years thanks to the early release system. They considered this unfair, given that their daughter lost her life. The Vivanco family did not stop their private investigation. They continued to search for new evidence that could shed light on some still unclear aspects of the case. In particular, they were interested in the motives for the crime and the possible involvement of other persons in concealing evidence. The family's lawyer announced their intention to appeal the verdict, insisting on a more severe punishment for Canales and continuing the investigation into the possible involvement of other officers in the tragedy. This tireless struggle of the Vivanco family to establish the full truth became a symbol of how personal tragedy can turn into a fight for systemic changes in law enforcement and society as a whole. The Valeria Vivanco case became a catalyst for significant changes in Chilean society, especially in the context of perception of law enforcement work and trust in them. First of all, this tragedy sparked a wide discussion about police transparency and accountability. The public demanded greater access to information about internal investigations and clearer mechanisms for controlling law enforcement activities. In response to these demands, the Chilean government initiated a series of reforms. An independent commission was created to oversee police activities, which included representatives of the public and human rights experts. This commission was given the authority to conduct its own investigations in cases of abuse by police officers. In addition, psychological support programs for law enforcement officers were strengthened. This decision was made taking into account the stressful nature of their work and the need to prevent emotional burnout, which can lead to mistakes and misconduct. The changes also affected the education system. Special lessons were introduced in schools dedicated to the role of police in society and the importance of mutual respect between citizens and law enforcement officers. The media also changed their approach to covering such incidents. Journalists began to pay more attention to investigating facts and avoiding sensationalism when covering events related to police work. Overall, the tragedy of Valeria Vivanco became a turning point in the relationship between society and law enforcement in Chile, encouraging greater openness, dialogue, and mutual responsibility. In a small square in Santiago, named after Valeria Vivanco, it's always quiet. Only the rustle of leaves and the muffled steps of passers-by disturb the peace of this place. In the center of the square stands a modest monument, a bronze figure of a young woman in police uniform, looking into the distance, as if guarding the peace of the city even after death. Every day, people come to the monument: police colleagues, academy students, ordinary citizens. They bring flowers, light candles, some just stand silently, paying tribute to Valeria's memory. This square has become not only a place of memory but also a symbol of the changes that have taken place in Chilean society after the tragedy. It reminds of the price of serving the law and the importance of justice. The story of Valeria Vivanco continues to live in people's hearts, inspiring new generations to honesty, courage, and dedication to their cause. Her short life left a deep mark, changing not only the law enforcement system but also the consciousness of an entire society. On the plaque near the monument are engraved words that best describe Valeria's life path. She lived to serve and died protecting others. These words have become not just an epitaph, but a call to all who dedicate their lives to serving society.
Boynton Beach, a small city on the southeastern coast of Florida, is known for its picturesque beaches and tranquil lifestyle. But behind this idyllic facade, as in many other American cities, lie stories of ambition, greed, and betrayal. It was here, in 2009, that a drama unfolded that shocked not only the local community, but the entire country. The story of Michael and Dalia DiPolito became a vivid example of how the pursuit of quick wealth can cloud one's judgment and lead to catastrophic consequences. Michael DiPolito was born on December 18, 1970 in Philadelphia. His childhood was far from ideal. Both parents struggled with drug addiction, so his grandparents raised the boy most of the time. Unfortunately, the negative example set by his parents influenced Michael, and by the age of 15, he ended up in a rehabilitation center due to problems with alcohol and drugs. After 5.5 years of sobriety, Michael relapsed in his early 20s and began dealing drugs. In 1997, at the age of 26, he moved to Florida, hoping for a new life. However, shortly after moving, he was arrested for offering $15 for sexual services to an undercover officer. Despite this incident, Michael tried to turn his life around. He started working as a salesman for a telemarketing company, but quickly realized that this activity was associated with fraud. Instead of abandoning illegal activities, Michael decided to open his own company that engaged in similar schemes. He used the obtained funds for a luxurious lifestyle, spending them on jewelry, hotel rooms, clothes, and even more than $6,000 on phone sex. In 2002, Michael was arrested for illegal telemarketing, fraud, and grand theft. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 28 years of probation. After his release in 2005, Michael had to report his every move to a probation officer and pay $220,000 in restitution. Dalia Muhammad was born on October 18, 1982 in New York, but grew up with 2 younger siblings in Boynton Beach, Florida. Her childhood was relatively calm, but everything changed when she turned 18. Dalia's parents divorced due to her father's infidelity, which deeply affected the young woman. At 19, Dalia began working in the escort service industry. She worked in various massage parlors in Florida and California, where she moved for a while with her then-fiancé. Over the next few years, Dalia's life was full of changes. She studied in college, obtained a real estate agent license, got married and divorced, taking with her an expensive $40,000 ring, a new Mercedes, and a significant amount of money. In October 2008, as the sun was setting over the southern Atlantic coast, 38-year-old entrepreneur Michael DiPolito, whose wife was away, decided to order an escort. Just 35 minutes after the call, 26-year-old Dalia Muhammad knocked on his door. This meeting became a turning point in both their lives. Michael was struck by Dalia's beauty, and a spark immediately ignited between them. They spent the evening immersed in friendly conversation that went far beyond ordinary escort services. The next day, Michael contacted Dahlia again, and they spent the entire weekend together. Their connection quickly grew into something more than just a business relationship. This unexpected meeting became the beginning of a whirlwind romance that led to dramatic events that forever changed both their lives. Michael, who had recently been released from prison and was trying to start a new life, saw in Dahlia a chance for happiness. Dahlia, for her part, saw in Michael an opportunity to escape the life of an escort and gain financial stability. The romance between Michael and Dahlia developed at lightning speed. Just 2 weeks after their first meeting, Michael was ready to take a decisive step. He divorced his first wife, Maria, with whom he had lived for 7 years. The divorce was finalized on January 28, 2009, and on the same day, Michael bought a townhouse for himself and Dahlia. Interestingly, Dahlia, who was already working as a real estate agent at the time, was the realtor in this deal, receiving a commission from the sale of the house that Michael bought for them. 5 days after the divorce was finalized on February 2nd, 2009, Michael and Dahlia got married in the Palm Beach County Court. Their marriage seemed like a perfect combination of passion and shared interests. They described their relationship as very sexual, loved to relax together, and dreamed of appearing on a reality show. Michael gave Dahlia an engagement ring worth $26,000, which indicated his serious intentions and financial capabilities. However, the idyll didn't last long. Just a month after the wedding, the first signs of problems began to appear. Michael and Dahlia started discussing the possibility of early termination of Michael's probation. This required paying the remaining restitution of $191,000. Dahlia offered to pay $91,000 of this amount, and Michael was to contribute the remaining $100,000. This proposal seemed generous and indicated Dahlia's desire to help her husband. However, it was from this moment that financial machinations began, which later led to tragic consequences. In February and March 2009, Michael began transferring money to Dahlia in small amounts, $6,000 to $7,000, every few days, sometimes even twice a day. He tried to transfer the full amount of $100,000 in smaller transactions to avoid drawing attention to large transfers. This caution was related to his past and probation conditions. However, it soon became clear that not everything was going according to plan. Dahlia informed Michael that she had transferred all the money to the lawyer, but the receipt she provided raised suspicions. It stated that the payment was made from an account in the Cayman Islands and that it had been canceled. This became the first serious signal that something was wrong in their relationship. The financial situation was becoming increasingly complicated. A week after the incident with the receipt, Dahlia provided Michael with a bank check for $191,000. However, this check was written in the name of Eric Tao, the husband of Dahlia's friend, which raised additional suspicions. When they came to Michael's lawyer to hand over the check, Dahlia unexpectedly took it back, demanding that $91,000 be returned to her. Michael, trying to keep the peace, went to his bank safe and retrieved $140,000 in cash. He gave Dahlia $91,000 in exchange for the check for the full amount of restitution. However, when Michael brought the check to his lawyer, it turned out that the amount on it had changed from $191,000 to $191. Dahlia explained this by saying that during lunch with Eric, he had allegedly switched the checks. Eric agreed to write a new check for $191,000 if Michael gave him $140,000 in cash and paid the remaining $51,000 later. This complex scheme led to Michael's lawyer refusing to take the case, considering the situation too risky. Later, Dahlia suggested a new lawyer who advised Michael to transfer the house to her name. On July 31, 2009, Michael, trusting his wife, signed documents transferring ownership of the house to Dahlia. Parallel to the financial machinations, Dahlia began implementing a plan to frame Michael. On March 5, 2009, at 6:40 in the morning, about 10 police officers arrived at the DiPolito couple's house. Michael's probation officer had received 3 anonymous calls from neighbors who claimed that Michael was selling steroids and ecstasy from home. Michael was shocked, as nothing like this had ever happened during his years on probation. The police searched the house but found nothing. 11 days later, on March 16th, the police received another anonymous call. This time, a woman reported that someone was selling drugs from a gray Chevrolet Tahoe in the parking lot of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Manalapan, 6 miles from the DiPolito house. The police checked the car, which belonged to Michael, but again found nothing. 2 weeks later, on March 29th, a special narcotics unit stopped Michael and Dahlia at the City Place shopping center in Palm Beach. This time, they found cocaine hidden in a cigarette pack under the spare tire in Michael's car. Michael was stunned and began to cry, claiming that he had been clean for 6 years and had no idea how the drugs ended up in his car. Officer Mary Hopper believed Michael, and he wasn't arrested. Later, it was revealed that it was Dahlia who had planted the drugs and made the anonymous calls, trying to frame her husband. On March 17, 2009, Dahlia took a step that definitively moved her actions from the category of fraud to that of particularly serious crimes. She contacted her ex-boyfriend, Mohammed Shihadeh. During a meeting the next day, Dahlia told Mohammed that Michael was allegedly abusing her and she feared for her life. To gain Mohammed's trust, Dahlia gifted him a Range Rover, which she had bought with money intended for Michael's restitution. After this, she made a shocking proposal. She asked Mohammed if he knew anyone who could kill her husband. Mohammed was stunned and refused to participate in this plan. Faced with refusal, Dahlia did not give up on her intention. She continued to look for ways to get rid of Michael, including attempts to send him back to prison through planted drugs. According to the investigation, on July 22, 2009, Dahlia even tried to poison Michael by adding antifreeze to his tea. Michael immediately spat out the drink due to its unpleasant taste, but for the next 10 days he suffered from mouth ulcers, diarrhea, and severe stomach pains. On July 31, 2009, the same day Michael signed documents transferring the house to Dahlia, she met with Mohammed again. This time, she directly asked him to kill Michael. Shocked by such a proposal, Mohammed refused and immediately turned to the Boynton Beach police. The police quickly reacted to this report. They decided to use Mohammed to gather evidence against Dahlia. Detectives installed hidden cameras and microphones in Mohammed's car and asked him to arrange another meeting with Dahlia. The next day, this meeting took place and was fully recorded. Dahlia told Mohammed that she couldn't divorce Michael because he had connections to organized crime, and if she filed for divorce, they would come after her. She gave Mohammed $1,200 to purchase a weapon, a clear photograph of Michael, and a plan of their house. The police now had enough evidence to act. They decided to continue the operation to obtain even more irrefutable evidence. Detectives prepared Sergeant Whitty Jean to play the role of a hired killer. The plan was to arrange a meeting between Dahlia and the killer and record their entire conversation. On August 3, 2009, in the CVS parking lot in Boynton Beach, a meeting took place between Dahlia and the killer Sergeant Whitty Jean, who was acting undercover. The entire conversation was recorded on a hidden camera installed in the car. During this meeting, Dahlia discussed in detail her plan to kill Michael. She insisted that the crime be committed as soon as possible, preferably on Wednesday morning. Sergeant John suggested staging a robbery gone wrong, to which Dahlia agreed. Dahlia provided information about Michael's daily routine, noting that he usually walks the dog at 6:30 in the morning and leaves the doors open. She promised to be at the gym at the time of the murder to provide herself with an alibi. The most shocking moment of the conversation was when Sergeant Jean asked Dahlia if she was sure about her decision. Dahlia replied that she was 5,000% sure and that her decision was final. This phrase later became key evidence against her in court. August 5th, 2009, the day planned for the murder, started early. At 5:30 in the morning, Dahlia informed Michael that she was going to the gym unusually early for her, which surprised Michael, but he didn't pay much attention to it. The police monitored Dahlia to make sure she actually went to the gym. This was important for their plan, and as evidence of her involvement in the crime being prepared. Meanwhile, detectives arrived at the DiPolito house and informed Michael about the situation. He was quickly evacuated and taken to the police station. The police staged a crime scene, cordoning off the house with yellow tape and turning on the sirens of patrol cars. Cameras from the TV show Cops, which was being filmed with the Boynton Beach police at the time, were also on site to record the events. At 6:40 in the morning, Detective Sergeant Frank Ranzi called Dahlia and informed her that an emergency had occurred at her house and she needed to return home immediately. When Dahlia arrived, Sergeant Ranzi told her that her husband Michael had been killed. Dahlia's reaction to this news was a key moment for the investigation. She began to cry and seemed shocked, but the detectives who had experience with similar situations noticed that her reaction seemed unnatural. They noted that although Dahlia was crying, there were no tears on her face. Dahlia was taken to the police station for questioning. Detectives began asking her about possible suspects in her husband's murder. Dahlia talked about Michael's criminal past, his probation for stock fraud, and the difficulties he faced trying to pay restitution. She insisted that their marriage was happy and without problems. During the interrogation, Dahlia named several potential suspects, including Michael's former business partner, who actually had nothing to do with the case. She detailed Michael's financial difficulties and people from his past who might wish him harm. After a lengthy interrogation, the detectives decided to move to the decisive stage. They brought Sergeant Whitty Jean, handcuffed, into the interrogation room and asked Dahlia if she knew this person. Dahlia strongly denied ever seeing him before. Then the detectives revealed the truth: Michael was alive, and the man she had hired for the murder was actually an undercover police officer. They informed Dahlia that they had video and audio recordings of all her conversations regarding the murder planning. Despite the presented evidence, Dahlia continued to deny her involvement in the conspiracy. She insisted on her innocence even after being shown video recordings of her conversations with the killer. This unwavering position surprised the detectives, who had never before encountered such a level of denial in the face of obvious evidence. Dahlia was arrested on charges of solicitation of first-degree murder. During the arrest, she continued to insist on her innocence, repeating, "I didn't do anything," even as they put handcuffs on her. After the arrest, the police allowed Michael to see Dahlia. When he entered the room where she was, Dahlia began begging him to come closer, repeating that it was all untrue. Michael refused to approach, stating that he couldn't help her get out of this situation. While in county jail, Dahlia called Michael. During this conversation, she continued to deny her involvement in the conspiracy, even when Michael told her he had seen and heard all the evidence. Michael offered to help her if she would sign the house back over to him, but Dahlia refused. This phone conversation became another piece of evidence of Dahlia's unusual behavior. Even in the face of irrefutable evidence and her husband's confession that he had seen the video recordings, she continued to insist on her version of events. The trial of Dahlia DiPolito began on April 25, 2011 in Palm Beach County Court. The prosecution presented substantial evidence, including video recordings of Dahlia's conversations with the undercover killer and her reaction to the staged murder of her husband. Dahlia's defense chose an unexpected strategy. They claimed that the entire situation was a setup organized by Michael DiPolito to gain fame and get on a reality show. According to the lawyers, Dahlia was a victim of her husband's manipulations and the Boynton Beach police's greed for fame. Michael DiPolito testified for 3 days. He strongly denied any involvement in the setup and emphasized that he would never risk his life or money for a reality show. His testimony significantly undermined the defense's position. On May 13, 2011, after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Dahlia DiPolito was found guilty of solicitation of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced her to 20 years in prison. At the sentencing hearing, Michael made an emotional statement. He expressed his disappointment that Dahlia and her lawyers continued to deny the obvious, and noted that it would have been better if they had said that aliens landed, and did this as it would have been a better defense. Despite the verdict, Dahlia DiPolito's legal saga was far from over. On July 30, 2014, she was granted the right to a new trial. The reason was that one of the jurors from the first trial had learned about Dahlia's attempt to poison Michael with antifreeze information that was deemed inadmissible in court. The second trial began in December 2016. This time, Dahlia's defense changed their strategy, claiming that the police had provoked her into committing the crime. They tried to present Dahlia as a victim of police entrapment. However, this argument did not convince the jury, and the trial ended without a verdict due to a hung jury. The third and final trial began on June 8, 2017. The prosecution again presented substantial evidence, including video recordings and witness testimonies. The defense continued to insist that Dahlia was a victim of police provocation. On June 16, 2017, the jury once again found Dahlia guilty of solicitation of first-degree murder. This time, the sentence was 16 years in prison. The judge upheld the previous verdict, but credited 4 years that Dahlia had spent under house arrest while awaiting new trials. After the third trial, which ended on June 16, 2017, Dahlia DiPolito was sentenced to 16 years in prison. The judge, in passing the sentence, took several factors into account. He noted that Dahlia had shown no remorse for her actions and continued to deny her guilt, even in the face of irrefutable evidence. The judge also emphasized that Dahlia's actions were motivated by greed and selfishness. He noted that there were no mitigating circumstances, such as domestic violence or a difficult childhood, that could explain her behavior. Instead, all her actions were aimed at obtaining financial gain and a luxurious lifestyle. Dahlia and her lawyers continued to fight even after the sentencing. They filed an appeal to the Florida Supreme Court, but in September 2019, the court rejected their request for a review of the case without comment. In February 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court also refused to hear Dahlia's case. According to the sentence, Dahlia is to be released on August 24, 2032. She will be 50 years old at the time of release. After the conclusion of the trials, Michael DiPolito tried to return to normal life. Despite all the difficulties he faced, Michael was able to rebuild his life and business. On June 5, 2018, Michael finally paid off the entire restitution amount, and his probation officially ended. This became an important milestone in his life, as he could now completely leave his past behind. Michael founded his own real estate company called Atlantic Florida Properties. His business began to develop successfully, allowing him to regain financial stability. In 2017, Michael became engaged to a woman named Gloria. They bought a house together in Boynton Beach, symbolizing a new beginning in his personal life. In one interview, Michael admitted that it was hard for him to believe that, after everything he had been through, something good was finally happening to him. Michael also became an active advocate for criminal justice reform, using his experience to draw attention to the problems faced by people after release from prison. Dalia DiPolito is serving her sentence at the Lowell Correctional Institution in Gainesville, Florida. According to her lawyers, she is trying to use her time in prison for self-improvement and rehabilitation. According to reports, Dalia has become an active participant in religious programs in prison. She leads a Bible study group, which, according to her lawyers, has earned her respect among other inmates. This activity is seen as Dalia's attempt to find meaning and purpose in her current situation. During her time under house arrest, while awaiting retrials, Dalia gave birth to a son. The child now lives with his grandmother, Dalia's mother. Separation from her son is the hardest aspect of her imprisonment for Dalia. She regularly receives visits from her son, which helps her maintain a connection with her family. Dalia's lawyers continue to insist on her innocence and are working on the possibility of filing a new appeal. They claim that new evidence could change the course of the case, although details of this potential evidence are not disclosed. The case of Dalia DiPolito became a vivid example of how fleeting passion and greed for money can lead to catastrophic consequences. This story attracted attention across the country, becoming the subject of numerous documentaries, television programs, and books. For law enforcement, this case became an example of a successful undercover operation. However, it also sparked discussions about the ethics and legality of such police methods. Critics argued that the police might have provoked Dalia into committing the crime, although the court ultimately rejected these arguments. For Michael DiPolito, this story became a journey from victim to advocate for reforms in the justice system. His experience highlighted the problems faced by former inmates trying to return to normal life. The Dalia DiPolito case also raised important questions about the role of media in covering criminal cases. The presence of cops' reality show cameras during the staged murder added an element of spectacle to a serious criminal investigation. Ultimately, this story remains a cautionary tale about the dangers of excessive ambition and greed. It demonstrates how quick decisions and unethical actions can forever change the life not only of the perpetrator, but also of everyone around them. As of 2024, Dalia DiPolito continues to serve her sentence, and her story remains a subject of discussion and analysis in legal and social circles.